Welcome. Yeah, so
Thank
I'm
you.
going to start. The numbers of troops that France has in Africa, to me, has really just been symbolic. So for them, this is a symbolic defeat. Their their people are moving out all over Africa, and people are celebrating. Oh, we've kicked France's ass. But all of the, except for the Sahel countries, which kicked them out and also held resources, all of this is happening in Cote d'Ivoire and maybe these areas like Senegal where people are complaining and want they say they want sovereignty. Taking out a few troops doesn't mean anything. The real question is what is this? The president of Cote d'Ivoire is running for re-election, and he doesn't want to look like he's a lackey of France. So it won't look good for him during the elections if there are French troops on Cote d'Ivoirian soil. But we don't know what deals he has with France in the background, and what's more important is whatever resources those countries have. What do you think, Lorato?
Yeah. I think we've seen this flurry of activity in terms of French presence in the African continent, and it is largely a part of like a decolonial process that's happening in the region, with, like you say, the Sahel being the most the Sahel Union being the most strongest sort of refutation of French presence, even economically, in in the region, and some of the other like ex-French colonies who are still part of ECOWAS are still sort of will still have to sort of like toe the line in some way and be on the fence in terms of um, removing French influences while also keeping up with the interests of ECOWAS, which are Western leaning for the most part. Um, so yeah, it is an interesting sort of development to see um, all this the removal of like the French military, because I think the military is the first base in which the colony continues to control. Um, and the second then would be them exploring how they could explore a different kind of economy that is detached from the CFA currency, which is like has been required by France, that half of the country's GDP would have to be saved in France, that
Yeah,
is in that particular currency and all those things, which has been sort of like a continuation of economic neocolonialism in those spaces. Um, but then all these sort of funds have been, because of kind of like modern money mechanics. If money is in a French bank, it creates more funds for the French country and for sort of like the French tax base. Um,
yeah, but not only that, they build wealth off of that money comes in, and then give loans to those same countries and make them pay interest. So they're double dipping
and
into that money. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, yeah, and make them pay interest, and we are aware that actually this is partly how France has also been able to sort of balance its social programs for French citizens. Um, and now with all these countries pushing France out, and its influence dwindling in West Africa, we see that France is beginning to struggle. We see a lot of protests amongst the French. I mean, they tried to raise the retirement age a couple of years ago. That led to massive protests. There've been
Hmm.
massive protests in of farmers. I think the last one that we saw was taxi drivers and things like that.
Yeah,
So the French populace is largely unhappy with how the government has been handling things. Um,
yeah,
and of course now African citizens of ex-French colonies see how the colonization, the neo-colony, is also affecting their quality of life, and they are demanding
yeah.
more from their governments.
Yeah, and I think eventually France, because I think they're trying to adapt. They should keep Macron because I think he's going to pivot and de facto belong to different alliances, BRICS, any alliances they can find, and position France in the middle and rely off of what advantage they have right now with nuclear energy technology and with other forms of technology because they know they're not going to have resources. Quickly, what do you think about that? Then we'll go to the next person, Lorato.
Hello, guys. I'm in. Just letting you
Oh
know,
yeah,
I
yeah.
had a.
Oh yeah. So I was just asking Lorato was giving us his last thoughts on that. On the
Sure.
France will pivot and they'll even start going against Western against American ideals to a certain degree. Because
Yeah.
remember, America crapped them out of a submarine thing. So it's not like America and France are the most loyal friends either. What do you think, Lorato? Very quickly, though. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, I mean, we have seen um, how Macron has also been personally in trouble politically with the election that he called mid-year that didn't
Yeah.
go his way, and the last one, this last previous budget that his finance minister tried to bring to the parliament, and it didn't go well. So
Yeah.
so there's all these things that are building up in terms of pressure. They are
Yeah.
having an energy crisis because they no longer have the uranium from Niger,
Hmm.
which I think provided about 30% of their energy production, of their nuclear energy
Which they were
production.
buying for 22 cents on the, which should be for
Yeah,
a dollar.
So
They're
if they
selling
want that,
$190. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
yeah.
rubbish, man.
If they wanted resources, they have to buy it at fair market value, and I don't think they're willing to do
Yeah,
that.
that's why they're going to
Uh,
have to function on their Airbus and their engineer. In short, they're in trouble. France is going to have to.
yeah,
They're going to
yeah,
have to.
yeah.
They're going to have to reduce the scope of their economy,
For
and
sure, for sure.
all the guys
And
in
we
Paris
saw,
won't be living fancy lives in Paris anymore. What are you going to say?
yeah,
Yeah.
and we saw earlier this in December, Tinubu was there also, so
So yeah,
it's
to help
showing
out.
that France is trying to move. I think
Yeah.
Macron was here in South Africa in 21, so
Yeah.
he's trying to
Tinubu was a
move.
Western asset.
Yeah. All
He's
right.
trying to
So
move into other spaces that are not so much francophone as one would say, and
yeah,
into other parts of Africa where
yeah.
they can sort of build
Yeah, it'll be
bases.
interesting to see how it develops. Okay, thank. Let's move on though.
So,
So let's go to. Thank you very much. Very good uh, information that we got here.
All right.
Let's go to Warif. So what are your thoughts on the shift that Cote d'Ivoire is making, and a lot of these countries are, in which they're asking France to leave, the military specifically.
Uh,
Yeah.
First and foremost, Cote d'Ivoire is an independent state, and telling what's it called the French military to leave, they have their reasons. And at first, why did they invite them? One thing about these Western countries, Europeans and America, is that there is no way they will come to your country if they will not benefit anything from there.
Yeah.
Because if they will not benefit anything from your country, they will bring in politics to look for one way or the other, not to even, they might just come, stay 1 month and they chicken out. But for them to have stayed there, maybe the what's it called? The Ivory Coast, they've now seen
Mhm.
that this thing is not working out for them. They've seen that maybe the French government, they are milking them. They are getting
Yeah.
more from
Yeah.
them than what they are getting from the
And
French
I think
government. So for them,
Sorry. And I think what
okay,
you're saying, the people know that for sure. And if the politicians like that politician, he now has to tell them to leave because he knows now the people, just like in Sahel countries, now the people are saying is bad, and he has no choice. I'm just saying that goes along with what you're saying. You can continue. Sorry. Yeah.
yeah. So
Mhm.
just like in Nigeria, if Nigerian leaders can withstand, or let me say African leaders can withstand. See, Europeans, they know that Africans, they have the wealth there. They have so many natural resources there that they will benefit from. That is why they are not coming there as in to make peace or to protect
Yeah. No.
Africans. They are coming there just to milk African countries. So for me, it's a good one. It's a good
Hmm.
one. And this one that Tinubu, let me just digress a little. This one that Tinubu is going to
France.
make romance with France. I hope he knows what he's doing because
He
this
Oh, he
country
does.
we have
knows
to be careful
he's a CIA. He's a CIA implant. He
He's a
knows.
Western asset.
He's a
because before
CIA
you know it,
implant.
you sell your assets to these French people. You have to be very careful and be very wise. So I think to me it's a good one.
Yeah, because that means that France will now be having an economic boom based on Nigerian resources. Or
In
not an
another
economic
African
boom, but we're
country.
going to help. In the meantime, we're having no subsidy of petrol. Cost of living is too high. Kidnapping is up. violence is up because of
and World Bank will be giving out loan. When will
yeah.
Nigeria or African country
Oh,
finish
give
paying
us
those
loans.
loans? That's
Yeah.
always
Yeah,
asking myself.
those loans are
When will
going
they finish
straight
paying
back
those
to
loans?
Europe. They're going straight back to Europe
In a
through
different way.
politicians' accounts, and we're going to have to pay that money back with interest. None of that money is going
So
to be
those
used to
loans
do
don't even
anything good in
they're
Nigeria.
not even used to help the economic situation on the
Uh-huh.
ground, which is what they're given for. Yeah.
Yes, it's not going to be used to help Nigeria. And then those Westerners will think that it's aid that they gave to us, and they'll think that they're doing us a favor. They don't know that we're getting robbed blind.
Yeah, that's what
Mm-hmm.
France was doing. That's what France did to the francophone countries. It says, "Oh, we'll hold your economy and hold your resources, but we'll hold it in our banks." And then they would make money off of
Modern
that
slavery.
and give them loans. And it was the same process. And then when you look at the francophone countries, especially Togo and Benin, there's no infrastructure at all. And you're wondering where all those billions of dollars went. Let's go to Falabi, who's been waiting to jump into, and then we'll go back to Kule. Thank you, guys. Go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Welcome.
my own take from all this is that I think the factors that brought this to bear were basically it was political. Like Mustafa said earlier, it was political, was strategic. Alassane Ouattara is going to be facing election in about a year. So he wants to separate himself from France so that it helps his image as an independent leader. So people won't begin to think that there's French influence on the elections. That's one angle to it. Another angle is that with this trend of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger booting France out, separating, severing French military operations in their country. I feel if Ivory Coast does not take a similar decision, they might be isolated in that region, especially when they're not so influential in ECOWAS. And if you look at Ivory Coast, for instance, Ivory Coast, I heard that the largest exporter of cocoa in the whole world. So France is going at the staunchest of all France allies. So France is going to really suffer from this. And I had Senegal and Chad has also taken similar decisions.
Yeah, they've kicked them out. And I think it's not that they're against France, but they're now seeing that the Sahel is being controlled by Russia and China are helping the Sahel keep France and the West out. And they can now see that Sahel area with those three countries, Niger, Burkina Faso, and what's the other one? Mali.
Mali.
So if you notice, so France has now moved some of their military stuff to Djibouti in the eastern part because it's much better for the West and the East.
In fact,
countries like Kenya, and that area is unstable with Kenya, Uganda, and everything. So I think now the West is like, okay, you've got the Sahel and you've got Nigeria, which France kind of holds. Then you've got, like you said, Cote d'Ivoire and Senegal are isolated. What were you going to say? Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to buttress the point that as it is now, I think it's only Djibouti and a little bit of their troops are in Gabon as well. The rest, the remaining allies, they've separated their ties. And then the president said the main reason for bringing in the French military operation was because of insurgency and also to train their military. And they've done that they don't have any business sticking around.
Yeah, and also the Russian forces in the Sahel are fighting terrorist groups and everything. So it looks like the West is losing their grip. And we all know that France and the West were the ones who put those terrorist groups there, even Boko Haram and all of those things. That area is going to eventually be strongly BRICS. That's the word I would use. That area, even West Africa. So areas like Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire, they might have that option of aligning themselves closely with whatever movement BRICS is doing over there, even Nigeria. So the West holdings and influence in these areas is very, very, very weak. They only have soft power, and they only have what you call it that they hold against Nigeria, which is loans. But they can't really stop Nigeria from entering other economic alliances. They can only lean on them to pay back the loans. What are your thoughts, Kunle? Yeah.
Yeah, so France have this scorched earth policy. I'm not sure whether it was Gabon or Mali or Chad, one of these countries, when they left, France concreted and destroyed all the infrastructure they put up in that country.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, by the way, that's what they did in Vietnam. They did the same thing in Vietnam. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, these francophone countries were only given their independence on the condition that they put all their resources and banked in French francs, which French don't use anymore, in France. So they were using French currency. They were being dictated to as a policy, and all their money was being kept in France as a condition for their independence. Can you imagine that?
They
Can
did
you
And
that.
that
They
kind
did
imagine
of
that
that
to Haiti
injustice
slavery?
too.
happening.
They made Haiti
Yes,
give them all of their gold. Yeah.
yes,
So,
and that kind of
That's slavery.
something done in 1920, not is definitely going to have
In this modern
significant.
age.
And yes, and then now in respect of ISIS being armed through France, it was being armed through a company called Lafarge, which had donated billions, and they were in a scandal. So I think France is now trying to go through what I'll call the image cleansing and disassociating themselves from Lafarge, because Lafarge is actually being convicted and found guilty of
Okay.
sponsoring all these terrorist groups. Now,
yeah.
I believe that this Lafarge is just a front for the French and Western governments. They just use them. We don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
can't prove. I'm just alleging it. But
Yeah.
I believe that they are behind it. They sometimes use it to terrorize outside influence. Sometimes they use it to cause terrorist acts in their own country in order to provoke the population into reacting. Like now they have one attack in France, and then on the 1st of January, Switzerland and France are banning covered veils for Muslims. So you're going to see
Oh yeah.
Muslims
Tit for
Why?
being
tat.
gunned
This is
down in the
wrong now.
streets, and all these North African former colonies that France had, all these former Francophone countries, they all have Muslims in them. They're going to start picking them up all over Western Europe. They're going to further antagonize themselves and open the door. BRICS is going to have a field day
Kool-Aid, did
with
you ever
all
see the
this far
movie?
right
Did
agenda.
you ever see the movie Children of Men?
No, but I'd like
No,
to.
it's in Europe when human beings can't have kids anymore. But it is predictive.
Wow.
You'll start seeing concentration camps with Arabs in them in Europe and everything else. You're going to start seeing that very soon. You're going to see
Yeah.
a dystopia in which Europe has anarchy, and if you're a foreigner, you're put in concentration camps and everything. Did you see the movie Lorato? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Toronto is
think I've
muted.
seen
Okay.
that with Owen
Yeah, yeah,
Wilson.
yeah. And
No,
then he
not
did,
Owen
but
Wilson.
yeah, but we'll
The
talk about
English
that on
guy.
another day. But what is
Yeah.
your point also? I
So
mean,
I
what
was
is your?
go-
Oh, so let Kool-Aid finish up, then we'll see what your thoughts are, Lorato.
yeah,
Go ahead, Kool-Aid.
so
Yeah.
there's also this propaganda perception
Yeah.
that's being leaked to the West. And they now have this issue about all the foreigners coming into their countries, but they're not being properly informed. Their governments are telling them that all these foreigners are fighting and destroying their own countries, are coming over. Their governments are not telling them that in actual fact, there is no reason for you to say you need security by putting an aircraft carrier in the Black Sea 3,000 miles away from your country for
Yeah.
security. That's not your country. What kind of nonsense is that? We become desensitized to that, and that's one of the things that has become a problem. So the Europeans, they think that their people are just maintaining security. Meanwhile, they're not being told that their countries are bombed or financially destroyed those countries to a point that they forced economic migrants to enter into Europe.
That's
Nobody
why
wants to eat fish and chips in cold, grey Grimsby town on the afternoon.
nobody wants
Nobody
to leave
chooses to
paradise
do that.
to go to Europe.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
guys, that was a
nobody
good
chooses
statement.
to do that
Nobody
unless
wants to
your
leave
environment
paradise to go to
has,
Europe. Yeah.
yes, yes, unless your environment has been changed. Either you've been bombed, either you've been attacked, either you've been compromised economically, either there's a puppet government. Look at
That's the
every
same problem
single
with
shithole
that's the
country,
same problem
and
with
I will,
sorry,
yes, and
with
there
Vlad
is something that those Western countries have done to put them in that situation
yeah.
and maintain that situation.
Oh,
And
and our
there's
citizens
no
need to know that.
exception.
Yeah.
Yes,
Our
and then
citizens
they
need to know that.
gaslight and make it seem like Islam is aggressive. But if you look at it, it's not Islam that's aggressive. They just happen to be sitting on oil. And so they've been targeted. Because you go to Indonesia and Malaysia, you're not seeing lots of violent, crazy people, Muslims there doing crazy stuff. Are we? We're not.
No.
Because they're not sitting on anything that the West is trying to get hold of that have a foothold on it. They
Yeah.
gaslight and they blame the victim for doing that which they are doing. That's just their modus operandi.
Gaslighting.
And then
Yep.
they propagandize their population into believing something else. So now they see Muslims as evil and violent and all of this stuff, which is not true. And but they do that to motivate the population so they can have people that are ready to fight these people, and they have you know
Oh,
so
and also not question what your government is doing in those countries. Yeah.
yes, what are they
Yeah.
doing? They're just trying to make money, and it's not even for the state. It's private corporations. It's private corporations and
I've given
private
up because
billionaires.
if we haven't if the citizens aren't shutting down the world because of Palestine, when will they? I've given up on
Yeah.
humanity.
Yeah, it's just because
When
a
will we
small
be
number of
outraged
people
enough?
control the money and those people
Yeah.
control the power.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're gonna move on. So, what are your thoughts, Lorato? I know we wanted to jump in. This has been a very good show so far,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I think there is, uh, as we clearly said, pressure on Alisani Ouattara, because he's trying to secure another election. I think he basically, I mean, I think sometime in 2015 or 2016, they had a referendum to approve that he could stand for a third term. Um, and now I think this would be his fourth term, or this would be his actual third term, because there's been a lot of coups that moved him in and out of out of power, between now
Yeah.
and the previous
He's
president.
dancing. He's dancing a dangerous game like Squid Games or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. Uh, but we know then that in those instances, the French military would be there to secure
Yeah.
that president's power, even though they come under the guise, like Kunle rightly said, of protecting and fighting against terrorism,
Yeah.
on the African continent, which is also a strange thing when
Right.
we do have an African Union, when there is the, like,
Yeah.
the
That's going to be
Union.
our next topic about how the African Union is not functioning the way the EU does because of we're fragmented. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah,
Political.
yeah. And why we're not seeing African military personnel actually fighting this fight on African ground.
Yeah.
I
We have
think
to
I
talk
know.
about that. Maybe even tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah, South
yeah. I think
Africans,
that.
Black Americans, and Nigerians need to coordinate themselves, and
Along
we
with
are not.
Egypt,
Sure, sure,
also
sure.
Egypt, Algeria,
Along
we
with
need
Egypt,
everybody.
they need to
Haiti,
coordinate
we
themselves.
need
We can't be
everybody.
infighting right now.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's other
Yeah,
problems because even within countries, even within Nigeria itself, there's infighting, and even within
Yes,
Igbo
even
land,
within
there's
Nigeria,
infighting,
yes,
and even within Calabar, there's infighting. So at every level, there's infighting. But yeah, let's
FX and the
so
BBOs.
let Lorato finish off 2 minutes, then we'll go to Yukule. Sorry, because I want to get everybody in
yeah,
before we
yeah,
head out.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, so we know that there are some military expeditions, particularly from a South African perspective. I think that there are South Africans in the Congo currently who are
yeah.
trying to
Oh, very
stabilize
good.
the condition there. I know they've been in the Central African Republic at some point, sometime in the 2010s. They were fighting there, and I know they also tried to stabilize Mozambique from insurgencies that were happening there.
Hey,
Um,
Lorato, Putin should tell South Africa to send troops to Syria for Assad, please. Just a joke. That's just a joke.
yeah,
Go
yeah,
ahead. Go ahead.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but I think there is, that you make a very important point,
Yeah.
in terms of the global picture, because I know when you
Yeah. This is
mention
a global
Iran.
thing, and South Africa is totally aligned with China and Russia, not just BRICS. I think ideologically now. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And there are those conversations happening, and I think it would be interesting to bring the Sahel alliance
Because they're going
into
to
the
come into
focus.
that too. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is an inevitable thing. We've seen Ibrahim Traore meeting with Putin already,
Yeah.
and they're having those
Yeah.
conversations and those talks, and there's
Yeah.
all those investments that are happening, even from
Yeah.
the Chinese government
And I think
into
the
infrastructure in
problem
that
though is
space.
that you got China, you got Sahel, you got all these people together. The only problem is that that's a political and economic which helps us. But we're looking forward to an African Union in which our cultural ethos also merge with places like China and Russia, which are maternalistic countries. You understand what I'm saying? Because right now it's just military and business. But one of the biggest things we need is Black consciousness. So we need to also have those types of alignments in which there's intercommunication culturally also.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we need to have cultural exchange
Actually,
with
I think
China, Russia, Nigeria, everywhere. What do you think? Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think one of the most covert acts that France has been doing throughout Africa is the cultural one. They influence the cultural space, and they monitor the cultural space very closely through their attaches, cultural attaches, and
yeah.
things like that.
And they
On
give money
some
to artists
points,
who counter whatever that cultural thing they
yeah,
try to
yeah, yeah.
counter. Yeah,
On some points, it can be good, but I think we need to sort of monitor what it is, what kind of narratives it is that they're pushing and that they're telling and that they're endorsing, because that is another wing of like neo-colonialism
Their fight and the
on a
imperialism.
consciousness basis,
Yeah.
that we see happening through like all these cultural movements or
Yeah. Yeah. So we
cultural
have a lot of stuff to talk
bodies,
about in the next couple of sessions. Yeah.
and
Okay.
NGOs.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Quickly,
but
then I'll move to the next person. Yeah. I'll
sure,
give
sure,
you
sure.
30 more seconds, sir. 30 more seconds, sir.
Yeah, but I think when you look at the African map in that ECOWAS area, the like this French movement is dwindling. I think
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah.
once France moves out of something like Mauritania, the Sahel region will have direct access to ports and to the ocean, and that will also influence trade greatly.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see, like we've been saying, what it does for the cultural outlook for the African continent
Yeah.
as a whole.
Thank you. Yeah, we're going to talk. We have so much stuff. I don't even have to book new shows. We have to still deal with all this content. All right, Wari, what are your thoughts? Shortly, then we'll go to Kunle. Yeah.
When Mr. Kule was saying something, he brought my attention to something. I think one of the African countries, I can't remember right now, that when the French were leaving, if you know that I have good intention for the country, why destroy some of those things when you know that the country will be needing it? That
Oh
means
yeah.
maybe for you to have left or you are leaving. That means you are not happy leaving the country. That means there must be maybe negative motive for you being there at the first place. So
Yeah.
African leaders should wise if they are not selfish, if they have their
Of
people,
course.
the citizens at heart, they should learn how to manage these European countries. Why are they coming there? They should be wiser. Not just
Yeah.
inviting them. You inviting them. They're just coming. They're not coming there for your peace or that they love to make peace in your country. They are maybe coming there for their own benefit, for their selfish interest. And even the African leaders are also selfish themselves. So when you
Yeah,
see
that's the
somebody
problem.
that is selfish,
So it's up to the
a
citizens,
selfish
and it's
man
up to
wants to
guys
work
like
with
us.
a selfish man.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
you're right. But
So I think,
some of these leaders know what they're doing. They're just so greedy. So that's why
yeah,
the citizenry needs to be educated. Every African, no matter what job you do, needs to know about geopolitics. I don't care if you're a mechanic or a physicist
yeah,
or a musician. You need to know about geopolitics. Every African needs to know at every level. Even if you're illiterate, you still need to know by ear about geopolitics. What are your thoughts,
yeah,
Afolabi? Yeah, and then we go to
Well,
Kunle. Yeah,
I think I agree with both Warif and Kule in the sense that
yeah,
there's nothing to suggest that France will be anything other than what they have already been. They have been a very negative influence to all the countries that they've been involved in. If you look at those countries, they're impoverished. Their resources have been milked, and exploited. So I don't see any good in them. And it has now made Russia and China more attractive because
to be
the
fair.
void will be filled by
oh
some
yeah.
other countries.
Hmm.
It has made Russia and China more attractive now. So, and then the Sahel region, people are now switching, to that
Come a little
side
bit closer. You're breaking out. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Sahel countries are now switching to Russia and China. Because if you look at all the countries where France has been, it's been a sad story. There's been no development, there's been no progress. It's been very negative. So
Yeah.
there's no reason why we should
Parasitic.
have that's why I'm scared that Bola Tinubu is
Parasitic.
forming
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, he's forming an alliance with them. They're not going to help us to do anything.
No. No.
I mean, what
And
will
I
France
call it.
do for an Anglophone country like Nigeria and West
Yeah. And
Africa?
the world to me is
Make
supposed to
them to
be
be lazy.
the world to me is supposed to be fun competition. Let's say it. We're supposed to say, okay, if I'm from Southern Africa, I want to be the best in Africa, but I still trade with other countries, so that's fun. Then
Yeah,
we create a trading block for Africa, and we trade with China and Russia, which is one block, and we're competing with them, but we're trading with them. Then you've got the South American block. So that's where we're supposed to be heading towards. And the only people who don't want to do that are the Europeans because they're white supremacists. They would rather see us go back to primitivism than to see a world of trade in which they aren't the
yeah,
center point. And I'm not trying to say that genetically Europeans are narcissistic, but they need to take a look at their Western empire, which is based on Rome. It's so narcissistic that you don't want everybody to be rich if they're on the same level as you. You want them to be below you. And that's what's
Yeah.
destroying them. China, Russia, South Africa, Nigeria, we're all smart enough to know, oh boy, let's hustle. Let's hustle. I don't like that person, but that person's helping me. The
Yeah,
white
but
man is like, no,
It's
I
true.
must be the lord of this world, even if I have to destroy it, like Harry Potter with
Hmm.
my wizardry. That type of thing. So what are your thoughts about that, Kunle?
Uh,
No,
so
who was
yeah,
talking? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I was going to say about the road. The road from Cairo to Cape Town costs
Yeah.
almost the same as the Lagos Calabar road, and the
Mm-hmm.
heavy rail line in Ethiopia that has heavy and light rail costs 10 times less than the light rail in Lagos. This tells you about the amount of corruption, and this Lagos road is being built by Tinubu's son. This tells you how horribly
Office of the son of the
and
president.
hopelessly. I mean, the same Tinubu has conflict of interest with refineries in Malta. It's just out of control. I mean, we have
Yeah.
to, it's out of control. We really need to I mean, literally, I think that this is the cabal that we never want to mention that is literally in power in Nigeria that's having a golden
Oh no,
age. And
it's been around since Murtala Ahmed's time. All these guys, the
yeah,
Bassinger and Co. It's been
so
around.
it's not just internally, it's not just nepotism. And then they are the last bastion of hope for French Francophone colonialism in West Africa. And Tinubu is actually at odds with the senators. Thank God that the senators don't really support him because Tinubu
He
wanted to
wanted to
go
send
to war.
troops to Niger.
He was stopped by Nigerian politicians from doing that. They've
Can you
got him
imagine if they had started a
completely.
war between Nigeria and the Sahel countries? Do you know how many
Yes.
people would die?
The only reason why
How
he
far it would
can't
put
do
Africa
that
back? Yeah, yeah.
Yes, the only reason why he can't do that is because the politicians in power, they just want to chop money and enjoy themselves. They don't
Of
want
course.
the
The
They don't
Hausas
country
won't
want
to
war.
allow
actually
it to.
destroy.
The
They don't
Hausas
want
won't allow it because it's going to affect them.
Also,
So
The
that's
the
northerners.
Hausa people are aligned to the Sahel people much more
Yeah,
than they're aligned
you
to Nigerians
to Nigeria,
below the
and
like.
then America believe, Western countries believe that in their life there must be a winner and there must be a loser. And China believes that everybody can be rich. China, like, look at what we've done
Yeah,
for
that's my
our
point.
country. Everyone is
We
rich.
too will be rich
So
because we have 10 billion mouths to feed, man.
yes, so
I'm talking about
everybody is
China.
rich.
Yeah.
Yes, everybody is rich. That's the theory behind
Yeah, yeah.
China, and they manufacture everything. So I didn't even know this war that Donald Trump is planning. Your MAGA hat, I bet you, was made in China.
Oh, I'm
If you
sure it
check the
was.
back.
Yeah.
In fact, everything that Donald Trump sells in his memorabilia, everything is made in China. I think there might be some things that are not made in China that's made in Bangladesh, but apart from
Yeah.
that,
of course,
everything he
most
sells
is
is
from
made
China.
in China.
Hey, Kool-Aid, Formula One car parts are not made in China. You know that joke
But
they
they
have made
can
in
be.
China? A car part was over in 2 days.
They can be. They can pick it up and replicate it in minutes.
Yeah. All
They
right.
have
So let's
years
head
of
out.
replication.
yeah,
How much
but I
time do we
think
have on Falabi? Yeah. Yeah.
I think we have 3 minutes. But I think the most
Okay.
important thing that the West has to that we have to realize about the West is that actually they do not have these resources to create all these things that they created.
No, they don't.
And all the resources are here, and this is why they depend on the system of subjugation as it is, of economic subjugation as it is now throughout all the other continents in the previous colonies, and in the Middle West, like Kunle was saying earlier on, um, because they do not have those resources on their own continent.
Yeah, and that's
Of
why
course,
they're
they have
pushing
to
this stuff.
depend on us.
America's the middle ground because America has every resource, but their labor is too expensive. Americans are too greedy, so they can't
Just like
sustain themselves.
Russia too.
Yeah.
Russia has resources
Yeah,
as
no,
well.
Russia, but Russia lives within its means. Russia is the most resource-rich country in the world. They live within their means. But even if their money is not strong, it doesn't matter because they have an internal economy that works. You know what I'm talking about, Lorato? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
If
Russia is
Sure,
America's
self.
sure,
money is too
sure.
strong, they can't
Yeah,
sell. They can't
yeah,
export
Russia.
because
So
nobody
Russia
can
doesn't need
afford
to
their
have a strong
exports.
ruble because they can feed themselves and they can still feed the rest of the world. So they have so much. But this has been a very good show. Check us out. I follow you. This show is too good. I'm gonna have to do a lot of editing into smaller videos. Go ahead. That's a good thing, though. It's not a bad thing. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, it's been another wonderful show. We've been discussing the
Also,
booting
happy, like Lorato said, happy birthday to Haiti yesterday.
Haiti,
Sorry.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
We've
Go
been
ahead,
dis
Falabi. Thank you.
we've been
Yeah, yeah.
discussing the booting out of France from West African countries, and from me, Kunle Warif, Erato, and Mustafa. Is bye for now.